Dialogue is a for more people.
Define politics.
Politics is the activity associated with the
And
governance.
economy.
Economy is the state of a country or region in terms
For all of this and more, join the Midday Dialogue weekdays, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. on 92.3 Nigeria Info.
College Port Harcourt, a world-class nursery, primary, secondary, day and boarding, and A-level institution, will be conducting her entrance exams by
27th of March and 24th of April 2021,
8:30 a.m. at the school campus, kilometer 16 Airport Road, Rupwaku, Port Harcourt. Please call 080-3340-9685 or 080-37106151. Hello College, we are a praise to God.
All right, 92.3 Nigeria Info. I told you at the start of today's show that we're going to have a lot of information being disseminated. We started out talking with Engineer Francis all about water, how the demand for water is affecting our ecological state here in the Niger Delta. That was a great conversation. I can't thank him enough for joining us. And then we had the business show. Imer Kinsley joining us, talking about scarcity and the opportunities that you can make from scarce scenarios, whether you are the businessman or you are the consumer at the end. Well, Follow the Money came up at 1 to 1:30, and we had a fantastic program that we played for you about running your company. Now, as a final one, I told you a lot of information is going to be disseminated today, and I have with me a very dear friend of the house, A.B. Bozimo, architect A.B. Bozimo. It's a pleasure once again to have you. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Jude. Great to be here.
Always a pleasure to have you. All right, so join us today in our conversation. Our WhatsApp number is 0809-030-6416, 0809-030-6416. And then on social media, at Nigeria Info PH, at Nigeria Info PH. That's the number to follow, at Nigeria Info PH for Twitter and for Facebook. Across the platforms, get on our social media platforms and join us this afternoon. So let's get to our guest. AB, what are we looking at today?
We're looking at the functions, the features, and the factors of water in architecture. Naturally, yesterday was World Water Day, and that was declared by the United Nations as one of the Sustainable Development Goals number 6. And fundamentally, they are looking at how to ensure access and availability and sustainable management of water for all human activities. To paraphrase, basically, good water for people. Now, these people exist where? In the environment. The built environment is where we all exist, at least unless you're in the Matrix. So,
if you've not seen that movie, you probably won't get that.
Exactly. So we're here in the physical, and all of our activities, whether play, whether, work, everything happens somewhere in some built environment. And we often have to prepare to do what we have to do each day with water. We have to engage ourselves in some environments, and maybe at the end of the day have something to shower down. So water is very fundamental to all we do, starting at the macro level. We've talked, of course, before now about presence of water, scarcity. Then there's also that issue of the quality of water. Engineer Francis talked about how water that we treat shouldn't be what we use for just any other thing.
Yeah.
He made a very good point I hadn't thought of.
I was shocked. If we were to, just go back on this conversation, when he made mention that, look, in certain climes, because the treatment of water, the desalination process is very
so expensive.
And even the treatment process of sewage and all is so expensive. The water that is used, yes, you can drink it, but they also channel it to other sources apart from drinking.
Exactly.
The fact that you can purify water and then take it down to the construction site to build is pretty ingenious.
I mean, and it is a situation where people have thought carefully about the pros and cons and costs of actually getting water. Because we're in a part of the world, thankfully, where in general it'll rain. And water is available.
Yeah.
Tropical, down south here of Nigeria, it's very easy to not see water as the actual resource it is. I think some factors say only about 4% of the world population has ready access to potable water. Other people have some form of treatment or difficulty. So we have a lot of room to improve those numbers. That's one of those goals. It's a goal. So every step we can take along the way has to support it. And that is why in architecture, you're thinking, what are some of the factors that, water, how does water affect architecture? Now, first thing is that climate. In certain parts of the country, certain parts of the world indeed, based on how water interacts with the built environment, you must design in a certain way. There are certain parts of the world where it's very dry. You find that the architecture there can be different. You can have a predominance of relatively flat roofs. You tend to have certain surfaces that you're not worried about water affecting them. In some parts of the world, like where we are, you're going to be aware that perhaps 260 out of 365 days, it may rain.
Yeah.
At least for some part of the day. So you're going to consider the rain falling, how you have to avoid it damaging the fabric of your building, how you have to dispose of the overflow water, and it's not just coming off the building and falling to the ground. You don't want the area around your buildings to be unusable or inaccessible because of the rain. So you're going to think from the site planning level. If it's an individual house, you want to channel the water appropriately away.
Yeah.
Typically, in a well-planned layout, you're going to channel from your site into adjoining gutters, and those will all be channeled. Exactly, you're going to drain it away. But in some cases, the water can overcome the drainage. So in larger developments, you tend to have detention ponds on top of the ground. You may not know, but underneath they have put some kind of void filled with rocks. So when the rain falls, it goes there, and it's gradually from there that it disperses. What you're always trying to do is avoid the buildup of water on the surface to an extent that is disturbing people's activities.
Okay, now, once again, you have this innate ability to just draw every conversation down to the architectural minefield and the maze that is the architect's mind. Now, I've been to several parts of Port Harcourt and I've lived there for a while. In GRA, for example, and parts of Aba Road, there are the sewers, the manhole covers.
Manhole covers
now,
are missing.
Yeah, they're missing. Now, I remember as a much younger and very stubborn child, I entered one. That's the Elekaya region.
But yes.
All right, very dangerous. I got into it because I didn't know
what is this, and that's a curiosity of a child.
I knew there were drainages, but I didn't understand until now that you're just mentioning it. That look, those a lot of people don't even know that the Port Harcourt metropolis was planned in that way, and I think it's one of the most ingenious things that they've done. Those drainages go around almost everywhere around Port Harcourt.
Totally. You see, we are blessed to be in a state that by its name is called Rivers State, meaning there is no doubt that we are a state endowed with enough water channels, and so drainage should not be a problem in pretty much any part of the country. Now, you could have some temporary situations where amidst some construction, there's some things that block the way the water flows, but ultimately our goal in the built environment should be that every drop of water, except for cataclysmic rainy situations that happen all over the world, by the way, should find its way in an orderly manner to one of our many water bodies. It baffles me, therefore, that sometimes on top of a bridge, in this beautiful city of Port Harcourt, you find flooding. That, of course, to me suggests that it's a maintenance issue because you typically have the drains, but when they are blocked by human activity, such as I'm driving behind a car today and I see somebody just open the window and fling out something, that cannot be government's fault. That is our activity. But, so water, one of the goals in the built environment is to, in an orderly manner, direct how water flows away from the building to keep the building from developing damp, mold, and all that. So one of the first things you do in your design is you make sure that your building, all the earth around it must be sloped away from the building, so that even when the water is falling, as it falls near the base of a building, it rolls. Water follows gravity.
Yes.
You never want a situation where areas near your building are higher and pointing, if you will, sloping towards your wall, because you will now have retention of water. And water is called the universal solvent for a reason. There is almost nothing water cannot penetrate or otherwise compromise. You don't want that. So at the level of a single project, for instance, you're trying to make sure that all the water is guided and the engineers do it.
Even what you would term level surfaces.
Oh yes, when you see it level, by design, you see water, as I said, follows gravity. So by design, all you need sometimes is as little as 1 or 2 degrees of slope. To the ordinary eye, is imperceptible. It looks flat. But once you can create that slight slope, water will always do what? Find the lowest level. And at that lowest level, by design, you would have incorporated gutters or wherever the slope comes out, you make sure that the water is guided to the ground. Something we used to have when we were growing up were houses that just didn't have any gutters at the edges. Water would fall. It would now create this interesting pattern at the edges of the roof, But now you want to try and gather the water, because that's not necessarily the best way to do it. You want to make sure that the water is going into channels and properly guided and directed. So that's on the level of a single house, a single building. Now in a community, and of course, it needs the same attention to detail, whether it's a single house or maybe a community. But in the communities, you now have more of that effort by our engineers, our civil engineers. They, working with this the land surveyors, determine the high and low points of the original site. Then by design, you can now modify the land. You can fill some areas, cut some areas. At the end of the day, the goal is to ensure that when it's all said, whenever water falls into the community, it either can run out of the community or go to a central area. It could be a lake, it could be another kind of water feature that is deliberately installed to make sure that as the climate change is happening, you are creating more resilient communities. You don't want a situation where anytime the rain falls, there is such disruption. Exactly. Nobody can, function. Now, all this means you have to have an overall land use plan, because it's all well and good to create your very fantastic community and all the roads outside are inaccessible. That doesn't really help you. It means that you are, if you will, landlocked anytime there's a serious storm. That isn't helpful. So you have those factors to consider when you're talking about your water. Now, apart from that, you also, water, we're talking about how it can be destroyed, can destroy or damage. But water is a beautiful thing to also introduce into design.
Okay.
And it has certain qualities. It has the sound quality. It can be restful if you're hearing a bit of something like a spring or a fountain just bubbling in the background. That has a supremely restful sensation. And you see,
isn't that the reason why we like to sleep during rain?
Absolutely. The sound of natural water just pitter-patter on the ground. It has a very soothing effect. So you can wait for the occasional rain, or you can actually deliberately incorporate it into design. But remember, we said first that water can dissolve anything. So you're not just going to let water have its way. You're going to be very careful, very specific, very strategic in how you will incorporate it. The common things you have around, you have certain functional pools like swimming pools where people can get in, or even have some visual pools. So they're not necessarily pools that people swim in, but they are very good for the view. And when you
Like
find
fountains,
or even just a pool, it could be formal, very straight shape, or it could be free flowing. And one of the best features of such pools is the effect of light on the water. When it's light hits the water and reflects, those are things you can almost not duplicate in any other way. Nature can be brought into a community. But what do you have to do to ensure that? First of all, since you know water can do and undo, if you will, you have to select your materials very carefully. You have to make sure that you are ensuring the building is properly waterproofed. And there are many different materials that people can look on the TV. They're talking about huge rains in New South Wales, just as we're talking about this topic. So there are very many details that the architect working with the mechanical engineers and the structural engineers will do. For instance, if you're creating an enclosure to put water inside, there are certain chemicals that you can incorporate into the concrete itself to ensure that when the concrete is cast, maybe at the side of a pool or something, it doesn't naturally leak. The tiles you'll put at the side, there are membranes you can put between buildings and water to ensure that even though it's looking beautiful, you have taken care of the technical details. When it works properly is when all those technical details have been properly considered behind the scenes. So what the end user sees is the finished product is functioning as intended. If there's a fountain, remember there's got to be a pump somewhere. There's got to be circulating the water. You are introducing, in some larger communities you find abroad, you find a nice water body in the middle of a community. Typically there's a fountain there in the middle. You know why? It's to ensure that the water surface is always agitated so that mosquitoes are never at peace there.
Ingenious.
There are lots of different features. In fact, that is an entire arena of design incorporating water. You have waterfalls sometimes. So you have a situation where water is falling off of the surface against a very nice backdrop. That sound, again, you're introducing it, the dappling of the water. Sometimes people incorporate lights, changing colors. So in the daytime, you have one look. At night, you have multiple different effects with water. And then water, of course, is used in irrigation. You're irrigating either your little garden and plants or big farms, time, exactly, for farms and all that. Water has to be incorporated into the farming process and the processing buildings that take the produce. So water has this, apart from that need to provide water for people, which is the center of the goal, it is how you bring it in to our built environment that will determine the quality of lives of people, how they interact with it.
I need to come to you now. It's 25 minutes gone past. If you join us, it's the Architect's Wall with A.B. Bozimo. And today we're talking about water, how we can incorporate water, manage how the architect can make and create a structure around water, and also considering how the water flows and it affects in the environment. Let's come to a scenario where an environment is water itself. I'm going to make mention of three places. One, let's start very close to home here. The Abonima region, for example. In fact, all of the creeks in this region, Abonima, parts of Okrika, or parts of Okrika, too. Water, you could say water. They live in water.
They abut some water bodies.
Yes,
right.
In the beach areas in Bonny, for example, and very, very popularly, and this on the international scale, Amsterdam. Amsterdam is below sea level.
Absolutely.
And somehow, we don't get to hear of cataclysmic
events.
Flooding in particular in Amsterdam. Over here in Abonima, for example, when we hear the rains were so bad, and I've visited that place a few times, there's been flooding in Orashi, but somehow you hear that, okay, the rains came, but the people of Abonima seem to be unfazed. What design structures, is it natural for these individuals, particularly for Amsterdam? There must have been some intentional work, and also the city of Venice. There must have been some intentional work to manage the water bodies.
Now, let's go far and end up at home. Places like Amsterdam, like you said, are fundamentally below sea level. So they had to do massive, deliberate, intentional engineering to create bodies that keep the water out. And then they have pump systems that run 24/7. Because some water may find its way in and it must be pushed out. So that is extreme engineering at the ultimate level. Of course, either that or that boy still has a finger in the dike. That's what. So it's serious engineering that keeps a place like Amsterdam functioning. And you just have to admire that, because they have people who must be on call 24 hours a day, making sure that all of those things function. And then they must have multiple levels of redundancy, so that if pump A goes down,
yes,
pump B kicks in immediately. It's thoroughly organized, it's admirable, and they have made it extremely beautiful. A place like Venice may have been above water for some time past, but it is a steadily sinking city. And what they have done is not thrown up their hands in despair, rather they've made it a fantastic tourist destination. So Venice is a place that people love to go to. I haven't visited. I'd love to find out what it's like if I have the chance to go there. And they too have adapted to what's happening. There's some things that have been condemned because they're underwater and they were not prepared for that. But everything above, they keep trying to maximize the effect. And I always talk about that Venice as people seizing opportunity amidst what could have been throwing their hands up. We have low-lying areas here. Next to us, Bielsa, when the rain is very serious, it's very hard to access.
Yes.
Now, Bielsa is reminiscent in some ways of some parts of Florida that are very low-lying as well. What they've done in general in planning places like Florida is that they have a principle. Everybody has a waterfront, and you're like, how? They simply excavate sand and then it's like fingers on a person's hand. They excavate sand onto what will be the fingers. They put a road in the middle and then put houses on both sides of the road so that everybody is looking at the water that's left behind. And that is how they've taken advantage of what could otherwise be a tough situation. Yes, whenever there are hurricanes, the water level can threaten them, but they also have higher design codes in Florida than many other parts of America, because they know that those hurricanes are coming. So in that region, your building must comply with higher codes in terms of resistance to wind effects and all that, and even water. So everything has a local solution. As long as you don't throw up your hands and say, oh, this is beyond us, you can use water, incorporate it into the building, and make sure that people take advantage and enjoy the quality of life that they all merit.
All right, enjoy the quality of life that they all merit. Fantastic conversation this afternoon with A.B. Bozimo. We're going to go for a break very, very quickly. Our conversation, water factors, features, and functions in architecture. When we return, we have just about 10 or 12 minutes. We'd like to get you and your comments. So send us your messages to 0809 030 6416, 0809 030 6416. And when we come back, we'll open the phone lines and have you talk to us this afternoon. How do you build your houses, your office? Do you take into consideration the effect of water? In fact, maybe when we come back, we'll talk about the very clear advertisement ploys or coys that people use these days. They tell you this land is not waterlogged. Yes. Let's get to hear from an architect how to go around that particular quagmire. 90.3 Nigeria Info.
Connect with your customers. Advertise on 92.3 Nigeria Info. Visit our downtown office at Shop 9, Mediatrix of All Gracies Plaza, opposite FIRS, Stadium Road, Port Harcourt, and book your commercials. Call 0817 001 8162. That is 0817 001 8162. And let us connect you to your customers.
We crossfire in the morning. Crossfire in the morning. Crossfire in the morning. Get into the midday dialogue and tell you about the hard facts, and then let's talk into the chat station. All for you on 92.3 Nigeria Info. We crossfire in the morning. Get into the midday dialogue and tell you about the hard facts.
Nigeria Info.
The first talk station of the nation.
All right, so welcome back to Architects World. It's the media dialogue right here on 92.3 Nigeria Info. What a day I've had learning, and I hope you have as well. My final guest today, before we sign off in just about the next 10 minutes, in fact, Architect A.B. Bozimo. Say good afternoon to you.
Always a pleasure.
All right, so 1 minute. How do individuals go around this issue of waterlogged land, like we like to hear? It's not waterlogged, but how does an architect come into play in this scenario?
The fact is, to determine, there's something called the 50-year floodplain and the 100-year floodplain, and that information can normally be either confirmed or at least ascertained using land surveying tools and skills. So you'll find sometimes when somebody is building initially in a place like a pioneer, it looked very funny that they might make their building look relatively high off the ground. What has happened is that they have contacted or they have been given the services or information from a land surveyor to determine what the worst case scenarios of flooding are, and now they build in a way to protect themselves against the worst conditions. Anybody who doesn't take advantage of that in the future could find that their property may end up being below the worst water conditions. We've seen something like that happen in GRA here in Port Harcourt, where when they now updated some roads, many properties suddenly seem to be below the appropriate level. Now, a number of those buildings have since been demolished. Other people are managing them as they are, but that's definitely something you can avoid by getting the services of land surveyors. That is what they are brilliant at doing. That is their cup of tea. What we do is that when we get that information, we now use it to guide how we set the levels of the building. If a land surveyor tells me that, look, even though I can't see it right now, the worst water level could be, let's say, 600 mm above this ground I'm seeing,
yeah.
I will not be fooled by where the ground is. I will insist with my structural engineer on ensuring that the foundation is raised, the ground level is high enough in the future, because the intention hopefully is that in the future, when development comes to that place, the infrastructure people too will take that information and use it as a basis for their design.
Speaking of infrastructure and information, water should be 15 meters away from the septic tank. If I buy a plot of land, fence it, then sink my pump, my sumo pump, and my neighbor completes his building and is about to sink his own, is he supposed to come to my compound to ask me where my septic tank is before he sinks his? And what if there's no other space in his compound? What do we do? Oyekachi.
You see, really, he should engage with you. I would hope that my next door neighbor is not my enemy. As I came there first, he is coming in. I should be among the welcoming committee. There should be some collaboration. If we all decide that, okay, what they call it,
the
septic tanks are going to be at the back, and all of our boreholes are going to be in front. We're having this conversation because we've had a failure of provision. Ordinarily, the water should be, provided,
piped to your house.
But since this is where we are, we should have those conversations in the interim so that we both protect each other. Because if he flips his own, he's affecting me, but I'm affecting him too.
As well,
and there's no point. Either that, or he decides to go 300 meters down to avoid my septic tank. But why are we expending that money when we can just have a conversation? Okay, let's keep all of our source at one side and all of the discharge at the other side. That's a simple conversation that shouldn't really lead to any issues.
Now, when you say it's simple conversation, it seems to lead to a lot of issues, because once again, the issue of I came here first, and someone here is saying, okay, so I built my property, and then my neighbor built, but whenever it rains, the water from his house comes to my house.
That's most unfortunate. I'm sure the other person filled up much higher than his. You know, at this point, he needs to, it may be expensive, but he needs to create some kind of barrier to avoid that happening. Otherwise, it's making his property, is making it impossible for him to enjoy his property simply and decently. And that is not on. He's built, he needs to invest in a barrier, some kind of low wall or something that will prevent that water from naturally flowing into his place.
But this is just me thinking of offhanded now. So if he does that, doesn't that mean the water will return back to the source?
It will not come out of the source to him. Now, I don't also know whether there are other sources. Maybe his neighbor is one, maybe the adjacent street is another. So really, he needs to get some reading of the levels in his property. There might be some changes that just have to be done, even to the functionality, because he built first. Maybe that's a person who unfortunately didn't take advantage or couldn't get access to the levels information, and so built at his best, you know, to his best knowledge. That's the kind of thing that a professional will do for you. They'll prevent you from having these kind of problems down the line, because we'll consult with the appropriate people to get the information. Now, if I now propose to you that, sir, your house, we're going to take it at least 3 feet or 4 feet off the ground, you're like, that'll cost too much. I'll be able to tell you why I'm doing that.
Okay. All right, 90.3. Oh, dear. 08179230002, 08179230003, 08179230007, and then the female caller line is 08179230009. WhatsApp and Telegram are available on 0809-030-6416, 0809-030-6416. Apologies if I am too fast. Let me call the number once again. 0809-030-6416. That is the WhatsApp and Telegram number. All right. Whenever I hear AB talk about architecture and how to plan the environment and how a planned environment should look like, I'm furious. I've asked you, these politicians, don't they know him? Don't they use these people? Because if you have good citizens, they should work. That's blessing. Haven't you? Is it just for people's houses that you get called up to do? We hear government say they want to build this. I'm very sure they do, you know, employ the services of consultants such as yourself.
Unfortunately, if you ask me, we can work much closer together in the interest of the larger population. I think they do reach out to some of us. They can reach out to further members of us. And the key thing, I would think, to engage professionals is to engage in competitions. With competitions, you can get some of the best ideas all on the table. You create the parameters, and then you get some of the best ideas. And at the end of the day, the society benefits the most.
90.3. Good afternoon, sorry.
Hello, Wisdom Robina.
Welcome, Wisdom. Hello? Hello? Yes, hello, good afternoon. Welcome, Wisdom.
Afternoon, this is Mr. Goodness.
Welcome.
Calling you all the way from Rumoti.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice work.
Very well. What's the contribution?
Okay. This is you more like commenting about
No, bro. I think you must have us confused with Wazobia. Yeah, I think that's probably what's happening there.
Perhaps.
Yeah, that's where that is coming from. Maybe we don't have a lot of time. We have just about 3 minutes. Well,
Right.
2. Now the first, I just have 2 more questions for you. Now the first one is, with all of this talk about water, and you know how it's affecting the environment and the building. What have you noticed? Tell us professionally, over the past 10-15 years, have you been seeing changes in the way our structures are being built to meet the water challenges?
The main thing, because of this water scarcity, one of the essential things that architects also do in the built environment, working with the mechanical engineers, is incorporating more low flow appliances. So you find in many buildings today, you find 2 buttons to flush a toilet. One for number 1, one for number 2. And that's to conserve water. The former thing you'd flush and
Just
the whole
one.
thing,
Yeah.
everything, you know, even the showers. You're getting devices designed that give you a very nice feel of the shower, but they don't waste as much water. Because a key goal of design today is conservation, sustainability. And every architect in the modern age is ensuring that they are arming themselves with the tools, the materials you use, the fixtures you use, how you even construct. Everything has to have water as one of the uppermost considerations.
All right. A lot of you probably didn't know that for those toilets, the newer ones where you have 2 buttons, it's because of conservation.
Completely.
You didn't know that. All right. Well, let's see now. Final message here before we step out of the studio, and we have one more task for AB this afternoon. All right. Talking about government engaging him. They refer to use mediocres. He obviously is in the circles. They should get him involved. Well, as Abi said, it's about getting more and more involvement.
We continue to engage personally and professionally and as a group.
Okay, so my final task for AB this afternoon, we need a tune to sign us off today on Architects World. I pick your brain because I know you're a great lover of music. What do we sign off to today?
Wow. You gave me no warning. I'm an old school kind of guy.
Yeah, but that's it. It's the old school.
So let's do something from Cameo.
Ooh, Cameo.
Yes.
What song in particular?
Let's do Back and Forth.
Ooh, Back and Forth. No, I don't have Back and Forth here. I'm Ready to Love. Something just came in my mind. Let's see. I'm sure you know this. You should know this. Let's see if it's available here. Yes, Candy Girl, new edition.
That works.
That works. Old school, AB as always. Well, thank you very much as always for gracing us with your presence.
Always a pleasure and a privilege.
Oh, we look forward to having these conversations. Follow us Nigeria Info PH on all social media platforms at Nigeria Info PH. Well, coming up, we have information that we have to share with you, and then a dial comes up at 3 p.m. for Hard Facts. My name is Jude. Have yourself a fantastic day. New edition, Candy Girl.